Hey everybody. So I wasn't quite sure if I was going to post this video. Being that it's my third video up on YouTube, I'm just starting the channel. I really wanted it to be, I want the channel to be positive. I want you to be able to get something out of it. And the last thing I want is you to go, oh, Brennan kills fish. Because, spoiler alert, I lost the mimic. I was like, okay, well, do I get a second fish? Do I just... Because the goal is I'll probably get another one in the future anyway. But it's like, okay, do I go get another, see if my local fish store has one, get one in there, slide in there, pretend nothing happened, y'all would be none the wiser. But my problem with that is that you might follow my techniques that I'm doing. And I think there's a couple minor changes I could have made that might have helped. Now, at the same time, with the system I ran, I also think that the fish was sick before I got it. Nothing I did was so intense that it should have, killed the fish off that quickly. But there are, looking back, a couple minor tweaks and things I should have done differently to kind of ensure that it got healthier with as little, stress to kind of kick that into overdrive as possible. First one being, I should have run my setup like this. So when the fish got sick, when I noticed, it had a bacterial infection, and it had, an eye popped, and you could tell like its gills and everything got bad. And it got bad really quick. There was no slow deterioration into it. It was fine one day, bad the next. And so when that happened, I initially I took it out, I set it in a separate container, and all I had was a 5-gallon bucket at the time. So I had this sort of system running where these are linked right now. And so this is pulling out down into the same filter, your return right here into the other one, and then a siphon going across. So that's why you can tell there's a bit of a difference between the water level. I think you can kind of see it. This one's higher than that one because it's, downward pressure siphoning over. Ideally, I should have had the system more like this. I think those two fish would have done better in separate quarantine tanks because they're small. I think this is a perfect size for those small fish still, but I think to have two, getting the two 10-gallons side by side, one, it increases water volume a little bit, so you could say the water would deteriorate less, but also just so there's no aggression between the two whatsoever. Even in large tanks, 100, 200-gallon tanks sometimes have some aggression when they get introduced to each other. So with the stress of medication, with the stress of a new tank, with the stress of, potential aggression, with the stress of potentially already being sick, that was too much. Another thing I should have noticed was in the beginning, it wasn't eating a lot. And I knew it was a little skinny, and I was hoping that it would kind of build that back up. But copper is an appetite suppressant as much as it is at the end of the day, it's like chemo for your fish. And while chemo is your best chance at keeping, the cancer patient alive, it does some, has some crappy side effects. So I think if I had waited longer to start on copper and had started with something else like the Pronzi or something like that to deal with flukes, and then shifted back into copper after I had the meeting, because it's might have been less stressful on the fish. At the same time, they're tangs. I wanted to get them into copper as quickly as possible since ick and velvet are really the big issues. So I'm still not sure which direction I would have done that in. But so essentially the reason I wanted to post this though, and the reason I finally decided to post it, is that you are going to hopefully take this information and use it in some way in your reefing, in your fish keeping, whatever you do. And I want to give you the honest interpretation as I set up this 90-gallon tank. I'm not going to hide the bad parts. We all know, if you listen, you watch Worldwide Corals, Vince is setting up a tank in his office. He owns the company, co-owner, and his tank took a hit and he had to pull a bunch of stuff out and redo some things. So, like, somewhat stuff's gonna happen, and I don't want to lie to you and say it never does. And look at me, my tank is perfect because I secretly bought 10 fish. I killed 9 of them, but look, the tank looks great with the fish that remained. I don't want to do that. If I have a fish die, or I have a coral die in the future, or an algae outbreak, or whatever it is, I want you to see it, see how I deal with it, and then see the results of that. I'm fighting dinos at the moment in the display tank. It's looking really good, but I have the lights turned down. And pretty much, a very low photo period on the tank. When I turn them back, the whole problem might come straight back. So we'll see. But this way, we can work through that together and you can see the results as it happens. So one other important thing to note is that, yes, it sucks that this fish died in quarantine. And a lot of people go, okay, well, if you hadn't put him in quarantine, he would have gone into your display tank and he might have been okay. That's true. Theoretically speaking, he could have been fine for, who knows how long. Especially being that the tank's pretty much empty. It'd be him and 2 other fish. Like, they have full range, tons of space, they'd be good to go. The problem with that is, for him to have died like this, he was not healthy when I got him. Nothing I did was so blatantly wrong that he should have died, especially, this quickly. But I'd rather have him die in that tank right there than in the display tank. Because if he dies in the display tank, I have, whatever killed him in the display. I would rather keep that separate. This fish that's been with him, is going through that 30 days again. So by the time it gets in there, that tank stays clean, because the goal is to add more fish after this, and coral and this and that and the other. And so I don't want anything in that system as much as possible, so that if I add more sensitive fish later, at some point the goal is to upgrade this whole system to a larger size. And when I do, I really like the Achilles tang. But I have to have a very clean system to have that fish, or else I'm just buying an expensive fish to kill it. So, it's important that everything stays clean from the beginning. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. As always, if you like the video, please, hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe to the channel so you see, as I'm posting more. This way you can stay up to date with how the tank setup is going. What is going well, what's going poorly, what would we do different. If you have comments on things, leave them in the description, leave them in the comments down below. Not a busy channel. I look at every single one. Your comment will not be missed. So, feel free to leave a comment down there. And, thank you for watching.